Let's get started.
J.C. Sherbert. Woo! 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 Woo!
May I have your attention, please? The show starts in 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go.
The electricity here in Columbia, well, has been buzzing loudly all weekend.
Passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none.
And the rave breaks out in Columbia.
It is good!
Gamecock fans, welcome home.
See how it goes, but we'll be ready to go.
It's time to root.
Touchdown, Carolina!
It's gone! Touchdown! What a hit! He baked it in! Can you believe it? Gamecocks have won this game!
Here are your hosts, J.C. Sherbert.
Oh, watch him celebrate now!
Phil Molinex.
My wife doesn't like hanging around losers.
And Jamie Bradford.
I'm going to tell him, you look like you joined Duck Dynasty.
All right, greetings and good morning and welcome aboard Inside the Gamecocks, the show live from the Sinorama Studios and teed up by TravelingCountryClub.com, the coolest club in the Carolinas. JB, JC, and Phil here until 1 o'clock this afternoon. No shortage of things to discuss as South Carolina walks out of Williams-Brice Stadium Saturday night, victorious over themselves, 19-17, the first spring game in the history of college football to go into double overtime. Plenty of takeaways to get into on that as they hit the quote-unquote off-season, if there is such a thing anymore in college football. Ladies first, the softball team, what a turnaround this year for Beverly Smith and her group. They are in the top 25. If you haven't heard, they have just entered at 25, having an outstanding season, 30-12 and 7-8 in league play, well on their way to the postseason. And so, of course, is Carolina baseball. Although they dropped the series at Vanderbilt this weekend, they are well positioned to be a top 8 national seed right now, as they sit at number 2 in the RPI with Florida on deck. Reminder, that series starts Thursday evening on ESPNU between the Gators and the Gamecocks. Transfer portal is open. We'll see if there is anything to plug in this afternoon. Could be. JC probably has a little bit more to fill in the gaps there. And then obviously we will continue to fuss and discuss where Carolina will look in the transfer portal by virtue of adding to the program, because they still need to do that. So a lot to get through today and throughout the week. Quick programming note: on Wednesday at 11:20, we will be joined by Monty Lee from Gamecock Baseball. So looking forward to that. Hope y'all had a great weekend. What's up, guys?
Not much. Really good to watch some football Saturday night. Enjoyed it. Took some notes. Obviously, sat here and had a notebook full of things that I kind of came up with, and most of that people can read on thebigspur.com right now. I think anytime when you look at is a spring game a success, you look at two things. Number one, how's the atmosphere? Because it's always a big recruiting weekend, and South Carolina had a lot of great recruits in there visiting. Mission accomplished with that. I think South Carolina's fan base, you guys out there, you need to, again, continue to give yourselves rounds of applause, because I think if you kind of look at the attendance and atmosphere this past season, combine it with the spring games the last 2 years, Gamecock fans have sort of reclaimed their title as best fans in the country. I'll throw in the Gator Bowl with that too. I mean, that was bowl games these days don't get the massive crowds like they used to, and they did in South Carolina's case when they played Notre Dame. And so hats off to Gamecock Nation. I mean, and I'm not saying the fan base have never went away, because you have to understand it was such kind of a long 10 years, 8 years, whatever. The rise of Clemson in football, Spurrier leaving, the Muschamp trying to rebuild the thing. Basketball had one good month, and obviously the fan base showed up for that. Baseball's kind of been up and down. And it's enough to affect any fan base. And it's enough to cause some folks not to go. Then you had COVID. And I'm not convinced that in 2021, Beamer's first year, that people were completely over, taking precautions and things like that when they went out in public places and stuff. And that's fine. But boy, starting with this 2022 season, and really back to the spring game last year, South Carolina's fan base has shown up big time. And guys, that just means so much for recruiting. Kids don't want to go play someplace that's half full. People ask me all the time about basketball. Well, men's basketball, that's an issue. Now, that's not an issue that's necessarily the fan base's fault, but that's an issue with that program trying to recruit, and especially when you look at every other program on campus that gets over the top support. And football definitely is in that category. You talk to any of the recruits, and that's that's what they say. First thing they say. So that's number one. Number two, you don't want any injuries. Unfortunately, there was one to Jalen Nichols. Last I've heard about his situation is it's fluid. That's obviously a significant situation because he's supposed to be the starting left tackle this year. South Carolina's gotten all these really good offensive line recruits, but some aren't there yet, including Josiah Thompson, who committed on Friday. And then also, the incoming freshmen like Big Tree Babalade. You don't want to depend on those guys to be starters this first year. And unfortunately, too, Case and Henry, who I've sort of been high on and I've heard good things about. I did some checking on him, and he's still got some knee issues, so he may not be healthy for the season. So that's, if you're looking for an area where you're like, the injury bug just kind of bit a little bit, it's definitely offensive line, tackle specifically. So that's a concern. The good news is you got time. I don't know if they're going to, if they find an offensive, I know the starting left tackle from Oklahoma State got in the portal today. So if they find a guy like that, sure, bring him on down. But, it's easier said than done with all that. So I thought with regards to Dowell Loggins and the new offense, it was kind of what I expected, which I had pretty reasonably high expectations. It would be clean. If it is and I'm not saying the execution was clean. I think the play calling and, and all that. And if that's vanilla, kind of looking forward to seeing what not vanilla is. Because, there are some things that they hadn't done, like throw it over the middle on slants and stuff. They went downtown a bunch, threw it deep, attacked the flats. The thing I like about it the most, guys, is it looks like Dowell Loggins is committed to making teams defend the entire width of the field. And I don't think that was always the case. Otherwise, he spoke in his press conference when he was introduced about the difference between the hash marks in college and the pros. And you have to think about that. You've got a wider space that you have to attack. So I thought they did a really good job in theory, just doing that, and I'll say, obviously my big takeaway for some of the younger players would be that Lenore Sellers is the type of guy that I think could be in a position to, there's a lot of qualifiers here, lead this program to championships. I think that just from what you see so far, you have a guy that's that big and that fast, and you have a guy that can throw it like he can. I mean, who has that kind of skill set? I mean, and those guys are tough to stop, folks, because it's like, okay, so you got everything on the field stopped. You got everybody covered. You got the safety valves covered. You got this covered. You got that covered. You may even have a spy on the guy. Well, let's say you spy him with a corner or safety. Well, he's liable to run out of there and stiff arm you and break that first initial containment tackle and then accelerate, and it's 30 yards later. And that's demoralizing for a defense. I thought back in 2006 when Spurrier played Savell Newton for those 6 games, and really through the whole Connor Shaw era, one of the things that made Carolina absolutely lethal is, okay, maybe they didn't get the play call in on time, or maybe Spurrier was trying to figure it out, or maybe there's nobody open. Well, when that happened, instead of a sack or a minimal gain, Connor busted out there for 8 or 9 yards, 10 yards, first down. Same with Savell. And so when I look at the passing game of Dowell Loggins and kind of how that's taking shape, and there's a lot of air raid stuff in there. I mean, there's a lot of nice stuff to kind of like about what he's trying to do through the air. And then down the road, you start thinking about a potentially very good offensive line, a lot of speed at the skill positions, that kind of thing. And you throw Lenore Sellers back, his skill set back there, boy, that's an offense. That's something that can really cause some people some nightmares. Now, that's down the road, but heck, in a spring game, folks, your starters aren't playing that much. I mean, everybody kind of ganged up on the offensive line again, but come on, man. I mean, it was even from the beginning, they weren't playing their top group, out there. And, they threw poor Marquis Anderson out there at left tackle, man. And I don't think anybody in the program is in any way negative about Marquis' future around here, but he struggled. And I think that's a good thing for young players, guys, because when you throw a young player out there to the Wolves like that, and he struggles, that's a learning experience. He's going to go, and he's not considered to be a left tackle right now, projected or whatever. But you look at him and you go, okay, well, he can take that film and go, all right, I got my butt whipped. So here's what I got to do to get better. And if you can do that without it costing your team a game, that's amazing. That's actually one of those bad/good things that happens in football sometimes with regards to young players and their development. So all in all, I was, there's really not a lot to complain about in the spring game. I know people are concerned about running back. I know people are concerned about edge, but those things are just going to have to take care of themselves. I do think at the end of the day, South Carolina has the makings of a pretty good football team coming up.
We got John Whittle coming up at 11:20. Keith Alsep at 12 as well. But Phil, the game Saturday night. I'm not a big takeaway guy from spring games. I'm just not. Let me see them get off the bus and let me see what some of these new guys look like. How do they move and this, that, and the other. Anything that really caught your eye though? We've heard a lot of the same things. A lot of the stuff JC's mentioned. Joyner. Is there somebody maybe a little bit off the radar that you saw Saturday night and thought, hey, here's a guy that we haven't heard much from in the last 3 or 4 weeks, but he sure did show up today?
Well, obviously, I think Brian Thomas Jr. looked really good rushing the passer, but it's hard to
Sorry,
tell.
Phil.
Oh, did you say Phil? I'm sorry.
No, that was all right. No, you were good.
I missed the Phil. I don't know. It's 40 degrees and snowing outside this morning, so I'm naturally depressed today. So if I'm a little off, I apologize. So
no, that was good. Hey, we'd love to hear your analysis of the spring game. No, overall, there wasn't anything that really flashed. You see different things across the field. And JC said most of it. Just happy to see the way that it looks. You can tell it's a little different than it was last year offensively. The way they set it up with the teams being drafted, though, I think, made for that weird O-line configurations and maybe probably some things that, because neither one of the sides had anybody fully, healthy that's been working together all spring, so that's not going to come together. And there's so much cohesion that has to happen there. And that's just going to help the run game. But, obviously we need a running back. One thing I did take notice of was that if you're not a giant program, right, if you're not one of the blue bloods, like everybody likes to say, when it comes to college football, you have to create your own relevance. And I think that when you're packing out a stadium like that in the spring and that energy and hype just keeps building and building year over year over year, and here we are in the third year of Beamer, that speaks well to the big R word, the relevance word when it comes nationally. And that's going to do nothing but bode well further for recruiting, being able to help pull kids out of the portal that may not have given South Carolina a look even last year or 2 years ago. And I think, mission accomplished all across the board, other than the one injury. Hate that. But other than that, hey, successful weekend in Williams-Brice.
I agree. And a lot of my takeaways actually happened before I even walked into the ballpark. I was able to spend time with thanks to Pat DeMarco over there with the Letterman's Association. First of all, hats off to a lot of those guys. I didn't realize that pretty much everybody I talked to actually watches this show. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
Guys like Hart Turner and Jeremy Burgess and Jeff Barnes and saw John Strickland over there, Brewer, all these guys, Perry, Steven was in town. I mean, I didn't realize we had a following from guys who know a lot more than we do. So certainly appreciate all those guys. But one of the things that I tried to do was I know them. So kind of off, we just talk. And they're around. A lot of those guys spend a lot of time over there watching practice and talking to coaches and players and stuff like that. And collectively, there's high energy from dudes that I would say qualify as pretty good opinions on Carolina football. And they really like the young group that's come in. Clearly, everybody enjoys the staff, but those guys shared the fact that when they were out there, like talking about Rattler, for instance, I was talking to Steven about him, and he was like, it's different. He was like, when he's on the field now, he's kind of the general. Like there is no more of this. Okay, well, he's got all the skills and the talent and this, that, and the other. We're just kind of trying to work our way through the offense. Like he knows what's going on. He knows where people are. And it's one of those things where you might see from time to time, an overthrow or something like that. We actually saw a couple of these in the game the other night. And it's not really an overthrow. It's one of two things. He's now got it. It's smart enough, JC, you'll know what I'm talking about, where he's advanced enough as a quarterback where it's like, not open, not open, not open. But if I can throw this guy open, it's going to be a big hit. If not, it's just an incompletion, which is you're very advanced as a QB when you can do those type of things. Also, not open, not open, not open. Ball lands in open space, and you're looking at it going, where was he throwing the football? Yeah, it wasn't on him. Somebody ran the wrong route. So, like, we've advanced ourselves to that point with a starting quarterback at South Carolina. And I'll share more of some of these conversations later on, the ones that I can share. But that was certainly something from a guy who would know that I took away going, all right, out of my eyes, when I watch him play tonight and moving forward, those will be little things I'll be looking for to be able to have actual real discussions about them publicly with all of you. It's just something that's not custom around here to have a guy this advanced leading your quarterback room like Spencer Rattler.
Yeah, even the first play of the game, man, and that was one that probably got away from Spencer a little bit. I mean, it's kind of a progression, and Eddie Lewis was wide open. I mean, I don't know if that's one of those scramble and go kind of deals, but and I'll say this too. I think Eddie Lewis is going to be a good player for South Carolina this year.
I do too.
A lot of targets. It didn't always connect, but I mean, he can get open, and he's fast, and he seems like he wants to play. Trey Knox, obviously, Josh Simon.
That's my guy, man. I'm telling you. Yeah.
I'm telling you, those guys, they're legit. Even Josh Pate said today, South Carolina's up. Everybody's worried after every single tight end on the roster is gone after last year. And even Josh Pate said South Carolina significantly upgraded. So all hail the transfer portal in that situation. And, you know, in Simon's case, all hail in-state talent.
Yeah.
Because he's an in-state kid that's coming back, you know. Trey
he's
Knox.
a matchup issue. I mean, he's not even really a tight end. He's just kind of a guy that you throw the ball to. You know,
and with Trey, you know, Trey was at Arkansas so long, guys. You almost kind of wonder, you know, this guy's getting out at the end out there. I don't know that you expect a guy to come into a new program that's been at another SEC school for that long and take the kind of ownership, leadership-wise he has. If you listen to him talk, man, he's one of the leaders of this football team.
Yeah,
and that's different for a guy coming in from someplace else, especially someplace like Arkansas. So I think that's something that maybe gets underlooked. Like everybody I talked to about him, he's a very good kid, like an impressive leader of men type, and a grown man, you know. And I think as many guys like that as you have on your team, that helps, because in the fourth quarter, when it's 4th and 5, and he's got to catch that crossing route, he's going to catch it, you know.
Yeah.
As long as he's open. I mean, he had one play that was a touchdown that didn't quite go his way. Comes right back to the well and boom, boom, boom. You know, that stuff like that really I like. You're seeing guys respond and all that. That's really in all sports, but you know, when you're kind of evaluating a spring football game, how do guys respond if something to go their way? Well, Trey Knox responded pretty well.
Well, we need to hit a timeout. It's 11:22. We'll shift gears when we return. John Whittle will be here. He has yesterday landed back in Columbia, the long drive from Nashville, Tennessee. Carolina wins game 1, but drops games 2 and 3, but they are still in a prime spot when it comes to college baseball. So we'll fuss and discuss with JW. Reminder, Keith Allsep will join us at the top of the noon hour as well. And so we will be jam-packed here for the next hour and a half. Don't go anywhere. Inside the Gamecocks, the show from the Signorama Studios. We'll be right back. Family vacations, a new car, a new boat, all cost money, but you don't necessarily have to make more to afford any of that if you can save cash that's flying out the window now. iHelp Consulting can help you finally get the kids to Disney World, upgrade the minivan, or drop that new boat in the water next summer. Let Daniel and iHelp Consulting consult with you. No fees, just savings. You pay them a percentage of those savings. Save on essential services, credit card fees, you name it. Let them find it. These folks are incredible. iHelpConsulting.com. How can I help you?
Just as your State Farm agent combines good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates, you can combine your home, auto, life, or small business insurance with Tony Pope State Farm Insurance today. And guess what you'll get? That's right, even more good neighbor service with surprisingly great rates. In fact, Tony Pope State Farm is your go-to agent anywhere in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Georgia for the service you deserve at the price you want. So try combining your home, life, auto, and or small business insurance today. Tony Pope State Farm has been in business for more than 30 years and can handle anything you need in the tri-state area. Once again, Tony Pope State Farm will help you mix and match perfectly. Call 843-851-2222 or visit TonyPope.com today. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
The real estate market has changed dramatically from just a year ago. Rates, supply, demand, all of your traditional factors are in a transition phase. That's why if you or someone you know are considering making a move in the low country, contact me, JB, at Coast to Coast Realty. I work with an outstanding support cast of attorneys, lenders, inspectors, insurance agents, and more, all of whom are valuable in helping find a way for you to comfortably make your real estate decision. That's right. Call me, JB, your low country real estate broadcaster.
Traveling to cheer on the Gamecocks? Reserve your hotel stay with Fan Plans. Your booking supports Inside the Gamecocks and the Big Spur, plus you still earn your hotel loyalty points. Visit fanplans.com/Inside the Gamecocks.
What's up, Gamecock Nation? This is Jakar Moore from the DMV, and you are listening to the show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Gamecocks, the show presented to you by Express Sunrooms of Columbia. Give John Barber and his team a call, 803-446-4662, to talk about how they could potentially turn your backyard into an outdoor retreat. And, of course, first hour of the show is brought to you by the Cindy Searfoss and the Coldwell Banker Kane Realty team here in the upstate. Give Cindy a call, 864-414-5271 is how to get in touch with her for all your upstate residential real estate needs. And on the McKellar Enterprises guest line, I like it. Every Monday we get to see John Whittle. John didn't entirely get swept in the series. Little disappointing up there in Nashville the way the last two games ended. Are we at a point now where we have to say defense is actually becoming a bit of a concern?
It was this past week. I thought coming into the season that this would be kind of a below average team defensively, and they've honestly, up to this past week, have kind of exceeded my expectations a little bit. But this past week was brutal. 3 errors in the ninth against USC Upstate, and then I can't even count that high on the weekend. I guess it was four on Saturday, 2 on Sunday, and at least 1, maybe 2 on Friday. So yeah, it wasn't good. Wasn't good this past weekend, and certainly something that they've got to clean up quite a bit.
John, I not a big excuse guy in any way, shape, or form, but you were there. We've talked about this a lot last week. Talked about it extensively with Coach Lake on Friday. It's different playing on that field compared to being at home or just on with this thing they call grass. Would you attribute any of the defensive mistakes you saw this weekend to being a little bit uncomfortable out there? And then maybe kind of piggybacking on that question with LeCroy, it just felt to me like he got mentally kind of domed up throughout the weekend, and they just need to kind of loosen him back out this week.
Yeah, I think that's fair on LeCroy for sure. When it comes to the field, like, you get a truer hop on the artificial turf, but it's different to play on it, for 1 weekend a season. South Carolina's going to have to do it again, I believe, at Kentucky, so better get used to it. So yeah, I mean, it definitely provides a challenge there in terms of just getting used to it. Vanderbilt's got a advantage because they're playing on it every day. But Vanderbilt is right near the top or at the top in the SEC defensively every year for a couple of reasons, but one of them is because you get true hops on that turf, and there are plays that should have been made this weekend that if you're outside playing in the street, that should have been made. So
sure.
It was I get it. And I understand that is difficult, but at the same time, like, you still got to make some plays.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know where I've been the last 10 years. Maybe I just haven't turned the sound on for very many Vanderbilt Carolina baseball games on the road. That whistler drove me and everybody in my house crazy. I mean, I didn't realize it was like that. And then I looked up an article about who's actually doing it. And it's these older guys, but one of them has a real punchable face. Looks like your classic old Vandy fan that's just mad at life. And I was just like, man, I don't know how. I don't know. But anyway, I know that had nothing to do with the game. My question would be, John, sometimes teams will get hot. And I don't know, maybe just a novice baseball person in me, I tend to think when you look at it over the course of a 3-game series, sometimes teams that get out to the big start, they kind of almost run out of runs. And statistically, if you look at the game, like average batting averages and average runs scored, there may be some truth to that. I mean, I guess the last 2 weeks, 14 and 13 in game 1, and then all of a sudden things good starts in game 2 both times, and then things kind of trail off. Do you think almost the Gamecocks are kind of using up their runs in these first 2 series, or is that just me being dumb?
Well, I don't think that's like crazy off base in general. Like, sometimes if you have a really good day, you come back down to earth a little bit. But at the same time, Vandy's pitching staff is also really, really good. And putting up 14 on Friday night, I mean, that's the most runs they've given up all year. And then, they come back and scored 4 in the first inning the next day, and off to a good start. But I think it was more Vandy's pitching staff than anything else in this instance.
All right, boys, you got 14. Y'all take the day off, and
well, they got so many. Stop scoring.
I don't think we got any left in the tank, kids. So
quota. It's time to just settle down.
Or you get up 10-6. You're like, all right, everybody strike. I mean, just swing at everything and intentionally strike out.
We don't want to use up all our runs. Cole, don't swing this in.
Let's go on.
I've always kind of thought that, and then my fiance kind of agrees with me, and I'm like, oh, maybe I'm onto something. Probably.
Well, she's always right. I know how that feels. No, but I know what you're saying, JC. I'm just picking on you because of how it sounded in my head. I like you hear things like that. They're like, well, do you think they used up all their runs? I'm like, well, they weren't allotted a certain number.
Look, there's approximately 0 people that listen to this podcast for my baseball insight. Okay, so I'm not worried about it. It's probably just something funny. All right, somebody else in the chat box had a good point. Giving up runs with 2 outs, John, that was surprisingly bad. I thought Becker yesterday battled back out of some bad situations, but it seemed like Vandy had a lot of 2-out magic, whatever you want to call it, the last 2 games of the series.
They did. They did. Getting that 3rd out was tough for South Carolina at times. Over the weekend. So both. All 3 of their unearned runs on Sunday were, or I guess I'm not sure those were unearned or not. I think those were actually earned. The 2 off Becker were both with 2 outs, and same in the 6th inning that were unearned. The walk by Austin and the fielding error, those were with 2 outs. Obviously, Bradfield's solo home run was on the first pitch of that 8th inning. But yeah, I mean, Vandy put pressure on South Carolina a lot with 2 outs, and South Carolina didn't always respond well defensively, and that was a big part of the weekend. And that's one thing that Vanderbilt does really well is they put the ball in play, and they build their roster every year to have a bunch of speed and put pressure on the defense. And they have a certain style that they do really well, and part of that is not striking out, putting the ball in play, and putting pressure on the defense. And South Carolina just didn't respond great at times over the weekend.
So I had 2 absolute must-have conversations with you, John. One of them in just a minute is going to be about the pitching staff with Noah missing time. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Let's talk about the play on Saturday. Because you mentioned unearned runs. Of the 8 that Vandy scored, just 3 were earned. I didn't realize. Here's another knock on Vanderbilt and how they do things up there. The fact that Derek and Tommy didn't have a monitor in the booth is kind of ridiculous. So the ball's hit to the wall. I still have not seen a replay that shows that the ball actually hit the wall ever. It did appear. Again, this is just watching. I was listening to Derek and watching, and it looked like it hit Stone's glove and fell into his arms. I'm actually texting him during the game, John, because nobody really knew what was going on. I'm not sure what was being spread through the booth at that point in time, but what I saw, I don't know if you've gone back and seen all the replays. So Bradfield leaves early. He left thinking the ball was caught, understandably, but the ball just hit the heel of his glove, goes in the air. So he had tagged, quote unquote, but he leaves, but the ball was never secured. So it lands with Stone. He throws it in. They throw to third. And I'm thinking, well, that's a double play because the ball is never secured. That run doesn't count. It's a double play. They're out of the inning. But what they rule is that the ball hit the wall. So they turn a double play because the runners on first and second didn't advance, and that's where they got the outs from, John. What did you see? And in the press box, did anybody provide any additional insight with this play? Because I felt like they got it wrong on the catch. Am I incorrect, though?
Y'all go ahead and send Keith a text because this explanation is going to take longer than the 12 o'clock hour. So y'all are going to have to push also back a little bit.
Have at it.
But okay, so first of all, I learned something this weekend in baseball, and I'll skip part of your question first. I didn't realize this, but runners can tag as soon as the ball touches a position player, the fielder. So when that ball hit off Evan Stone's glove, that's when Bradfield can tag and go score, even though the ball popped up in the air and then was caught after it came down. The runners can tag as soon as the ball hits the glove initially. So that run would have counted regardless. So I learned that. That is that was news to me. So I picked up a little baseball ruling.
And let me interrupt you real quick. Of all the baseball people I know, and I'm one of them, I've never heard of this ever in almost 40 years on this earth, and you don't know it. That
in almost 40 years on this earth, but I looked it up, and that's you. But you don't ever think about it. You don't. It. That's you don't see it. You don't see it. So I guess it's to protect. I guess it's to protect outfielders from just bobbling things all the way back into the infield or something along those lines. I don't know, but it's in there for whatever reason. And so that's that part. But to address the whole rest of the play, usually on the field, you will see an umpire either go safe for a hit when it's something that's questionable. If there's a diving attempt made, an umpire will go safe is like a hit, or you'll obviously see the out call. I didn't see a single umpire, and I wasn't able to see a replay that showed what the umpires were doing, but I didn't see a single umpire make any sort of signal out there. I guess it kind of defaults to a hit, maybe, since you're not yelling out. I don't know, but they eventually ruled that on the field the call was hit. So that Bradfield's run would have scored anyway because of his tag. Since it was a hit, quote unquote, the runners had to advance, but they were both standing back on their base, and they were off their bases, not tagging up. The guys on first and second weren't tagging up; they were halfway. So R.J. Austin, who was the hitter on that play, he was credited with a single. He rounded the bag, but the other two runners went back to their base, so it gave them a force out at third base, and then Austin vacated his bag, and South Carolina tagged it. So he was out there at first for an inning-ending double play. I thought Stone caught the ball. Dylan Brewer, we talked to after the game, he thought Stone caught the ball. I had a little side conversation with Evan, who I think would be honest with me one way or the other, and he told me he caught it. So I kind of thought he had it. You'll see people arguing, one way or the other. I kind of thought he had it, but it was certainly a wild play, and in the end, it may have worked out best for South Carolina that it was ruled that way because Bradfield would have scored regardless, and instead of one out with runners on first and second, or two outs with runners on first and second, you were out of the inning. So maybe it worked out best for South Carolina, but man, if that had been ruled a catch, it's got to be up for catch of the year.
Oh well, and you almost had too when the batter rounded first. So like the runners were retreating to their to the previous bag because they thought the ball was caught, which to me was the giveaway. Like you said, John, there was no call in the field, but everybody thought the ball was caught. And so, but if they were ruling that it wasn't, how close was the batter and the runner on first to overlapping where that would have been an automatic out anyways?
Well, they may have, and if Austin hadn't vacated the base like he had, they may have just ruled it that way that the runners crossed, and I'm not sure if that's reviewable or not, but that certainly happened too, and that runner would have been out as well for Austin would have been out as well for doing that. So it would have been a double play either way, but it ended up being fine.
Well, and let me be clear. I'm not. This is more of just having a baseball conversation at this point. Like I'm not talking about how this affected the game, because I'm trying to remember back in my mind, had they crossed, and if they had, if that ball was live, and they crossed before Bradfield crossed home plate, I don't know what you'd even do there. I guess if you threw it into second and they're out, and then he's already crossed, that's 2 outs, and he hasn't come across home plate, the run doesn't count. I've never seen anything like this. I mean, there was like 8 outs on the play, technically, in some way, shape, or form, if you really wanted to add them all up.
I will say that Kingston was content with how it was ruled on the field. So, I'm not sure what if they had ruled that the guys had crossed, if how that would have affected the play. But Kingston was pleased enough with the outcome, so we didn't have to prod him too much on that one.
Only at Vanderbilt, for God's sakes. All right, John. So the staff this week, they get Florida. Florida swing. This is kind of a little bit of a different Florida team because they swing it really well. Jack Caglione is one of these strange birds that's being developed in a lab somewhere. You see one of these about every 3 or 4 years now. The kid at Louisville, and now this kid's come along, leads the league in home runs. He also throws 400 mile an hour off the mound. Carolina's staff has been criticized certainly for some things. Let's all remember something. They are still second in the league in earned run average at 4.43 in SEC games, and I think overall, right behind Vandy. And this isn't 10 years ago, John. Like 4.5 earned run averages now in the SEC are pretty common. Matter of fact, the overall ERA in SEC play is over 6 when you combine all 14 teams. So pitching is not what everybody's throwing hard, but it's not the 2.5s that we once lived through, right? So you got Florida coming in. Noah Hall's out probably for an extended period of time. Do you think that they will go ahead maybe and consider naming or just plugging somebody into that third starter role instead of TBA? Would that help this team with some roles? Like if Eli knows he's starting Saturday, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think it could, and I'm not sure what direction they want to go. Like, I know that they wanted to use Becker as a weekend starter. He would have been the Sunday starter against LSU, or the third Game 3 starter against LSU. Obviously, they used him as the starter yesterday up in Nashville. But I also think that they want to have some flexibility there with him because of the fact he's their only left-handed pitcher that is somewhat competent right now. So, I say that to say I'm not sure if they're going to name a Game 3 starter because that's what they would like Becker to be. But if they have a chance to use him in a different way ahead of time, then I think they may end up doing that if they have to. But Eli Jones could do it. James Hicks could do it, depending on how he's used during the week. Potentially Eli Jerzenbeck, you feel good about what he did against Vanderbilt. He's had, 2 or 3 kind of meltdown moments, but maybe he's past it. I don't know. It's hard to say. I agree with you that in some ways it would be nice to have kind of that established role, have that established third starter, because I think it will be a while before Noah Hall is back. But I don't know. And when I say I don't know, I truly don't know. I don't know right now if that's what they want to do, because I don't know that they know if that's what they want to do right now either.
Yeah, I mean, I think in theory that's probably the way to go. But if you end up needing to use that guy to seal a series or something, you do it. You bring that old Coach Tanner way of doing it, John. Well, why don't we just worry about today, and then we'll worry about tomorrow, and kind of see where it goes from there. But I don't know what these guys have left on their agenda, but I'll throw this final one out there, at least from my end. It's now this is when I start to begin focusing on the postseason, mid to late April. By now you've got a really good glimpse at who's doing what out there, John, and it's really about talking about teams that have a chance to continue to maintain their status as a top 8 or top 16 type national team, teams that have a chance to play their way in, and then teams that have a chance to play their way out. It's April 17th. Where is South Carolina in your mind in that conversation?
Right now, if it ended today, I mean, South Carolina's a top 8 seed. I mean, they're number 2, I believe, in the RPI, at least the unofficial RPI. They're 10-4 in the league. They're a top 8 right now. They're a national seed. Now there's still some big tests coming up, obviously, with Florida coming in this week, and at Arkansas here in a few weeks, and at Kentucky. So there's certainly some big challenges still out there with teams in the top 15 in the country. So that's going to influence what things look like. And as we see week in and week out in that D1 baseball poll, so many of the schools, 6, 7, I haven't even looked at the poll this morning, but 6, 7 schools have been ranked in the top 10 for most of the season. And, they're not going to give 6 or 7 SEC schools national seeds. So, you might get 4, but so you've got to be one of those best 4 in the SEC to have a chance. But right now, for me, South Carolina's in one.
Yeah, I mentioned a while ago, 18-12 in the league probably will do it for you if you win all your midweeks, and they're kind of on pace. So we'll see. Do we leave anything out? Do we miss anything, Dr. Phil? What about you, JC? Everybody, by the way, has been commenting on your hair today, so I'll join in the fun.
I kind of appreciate that. Yeah, I feel good about it. I feel good about it today.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, I want to know where John's got his hat from. Although I don't wear a hat, it makes me feel like I wish my head was smaller so I could wear hats.
This was for those in Columbia, from a place called Clothing World, out off of I-20. I think it's exit 82, Spears Creek Church. Maybe it was right out there off of that. It's kind of a hunting outfitter kind of place, but they've got a crazy good selection of hats. And that's from there.
I like it.
You need to send them a bill in the mail for that endorsement. That's pretty good.
Yeah, well, I will. I'll try. I'll see what I can get out of them and report back. But y'all aren't getting a cut.
Off I-20, exit 82, hours are 10 to 6.
Yeah, that's right.
Talk to John in aisle 4, and he'll tell you exactly where to
go. It's 100 square. They better open at 6 a.m.
Oh yeah,
earlier than that in the fall. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man, great stuff, John. Petrie broke Smoke's record this weekend, and that I can't believe it. But to his credit, I texted Smoke the other night when he tied it. Smoke said, "I hope he breaks my career record this year." I said, "Yeah, well, that ain't gonna happen." So, from one great Gamecock to apparently another one, very much supporting the young man in his quest to hit a bunch of dingers. He has been something special. So, pretty cool.
Absolutely, he's been remarkable to watch, and he's doing okay with the outfield thing. I saw him taking some reps over at third base this past weekend in batting practice. So, maybe that's something you see at some point, whether it's this year or next year down the road. But man, he's done a heck of a job offensively, that's for sure. And he actually has competition for SEC Freshman of the Year. I know that's crazy to say, but Charlie Condon is just a half a step off him in terms of in terms of offensive numbers. And, as great as Ethan Petrie has been, and he deserves every bit of praise and respect that he gets, Condon's put together a hell of a year too. So it's that'll be nice to follow here for a couple of years.
Well, I 100% agree with you. There's no doubt. His numbers are outstanding. The Condon kid. Gamecocks just need to keep winning, and that'll help Petrie probably win that award, because I think we can honestly say right now they ain't close to 30-6 without Ethan Petrie. So
100%, and he's a huge reason for this. Like I had South Carolina with a pretty decent mark in terms of record up to this point, but I wasn't really factoring in Ethan Petrie, being anywhere close to what he is. I mean, he's really helped to elevate, what this team has been. And he wasn't in my opening day starting lineup, my projection, but he obviously wasn't in Mark Kingston's either. He didn't start the first 2 games. So, he came in and got some hits off the bench and has done remarkable.
What you do is remarkable too. Thanks, man. We really do appreciate it. You're the best in the business at covering the Gamecocks, no doubt.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
There you go, John.
Thanks, John.
JC, I guess you got to give him a bump in pay this week. We kept him 10 minutes too long.
He'll forgive us.
Is it in his contract? That's in the fine print.
He can build that outfit.
I don't think I've read John's contract in a long time. I
don't think you got to worry about paying him a penny. Clothing World is on the line for about $1,500. There's about 100 Gamecocks are like, so wow, all right.
Swiped our guy there. Yeah,
I-20.
Anyway, it was pre-planned. Me and John have already cut a deal with them. Sure, I'm the one. I'm the type. I'll frequent the hunting store on I-20.
Hey man, I used to. Me and my roommates used to go to Sportsman's Warehouse every chance we got. Any money we had, it was gone by the time we left there.
Good stuff. Really
We'd leave there and go right across the street to Greens, back home.
Yeah.
All right, we got to go to break. Dr. Phil is itching to hit that commercial button. It's 11:51. Hang tight. Hour 1 will wrap up when we return.
I don't know who you are. I don't know what you want. If you're looking for a karaoke partner, I can tell you, I can't carry a tune in a bucket. But what I do have is a very specific set of skills. Hang up now, and your IT nightmares will continue. But stay on the line, and I will find you. And when I find you, I will fix it. Thanks. I think I have the wrong number. I'm trying to call Matt at Heritage Digital. He has a one-price, low-cost, turnkey solution for all my IT needs, and I'm sick and tired of my IT guy. So, 843-699-1001. This is 1002. Oh, well, thanks anyway. Don't be taken by some IT dude that talks a big game. Give Matt at Heritage Digital a call, 843-699-1001.
Gamecock Nation, JB here, and I'm here to tell you about my new favorite painting company, A Couple of Painters. These guys are the best. Gamecock fans and excellent painters, and by far the best and easiest quote I've received. They're licensed in both South Carolina and Georgia. They offer 10% off for military, repeat customers, or if you heard it on the show, commercial and residential painting, deck, fence, and cabin staining, cabinet and furniture refinishing. They'll even remove popcorn ceilings and wallpaper, and they offer pressure washing. Find them on Facebook or call 803-522-6832. A Couple of Painters, proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Golfers and wannabe golfers, former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor is now a full-time golf instructor in the Midlands of South Carolina. In-person golf lessons are held at the Country Club of Lexington. Half-hour, hour, on course 9 or 18 holes. And if you're outside of South Carolina, Meredith conducts virtual lessons. Just send in your golf swing for analysis. Gift cards are available for in-person 1-hour lessons. Connect on Twitter at Mayor Taylor and find her online at McKellarEnterprises.org. Her email is on the website. Schedule your next lesson today with Meredith Taylor, former Gamecock golfer.
You're tuned into Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Sideline is picked off. Brad Edwards will get a convoy. Touchdown, South Carolina.
Spurs. You ain't just a bird. You're top of the coop, star of the show. You're a rooster who was born to crow. bet you wonder when you went and lost a step or two. Fell down the pecking order, couldn't fight like you used to.
Welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Gamecocks, the show presented to you by Express Sunrooms of Columbia. And of course, the first hour of the show is brought to you by Cindy Searfoss and the Coldwell Banker Kane Realty team here in the Upstate. 864-414-5271 is how to get in touch with Cindy for your upstate residential real estate needs. And guys, I actually want to jump into the iHelp Consulting mailbag right quick. And all of you are happy to join us in the iHelp Consulting mailbag. Just send us an email at insidethegamecocks@gmail.com or tweet us and at thebigspur.com. But anyway, John comes in talking about the weekend, spring game, JB, JC, Phil. Been a while since I've been able to reach out to you guys. Love the addition of JB to the show. Hats off to you, Mr. Bradford. I got to take my son Jack to the spring game this past weekend. It was his first time going to Williams-Brice and his first football game, period. The atmosphere was amazing, and he said it was the best day of his life. Thanks to all the Gamecocks out there for making it a special day. As always, love the show. Keep up the great work. And I bring that up because we saw a picture of JB and his girls walking into the stadium on Twitter this weekend. So just to tie it all together.
Yeah.
It's all about family, man. It really is.
It was pretty. I try not to make anything ever about me. It was really all about them, and it was pretty neat. Yeah, I was having a. It sounds kind of strange to say things like that. It's just a football stadium, but not really. I was walking up that holding Hannah, my daughter's hand. Riley was right behind me, and I was thinking to myself, hope I don't see anybody that recognizes me because I've had tears and all that type of stuff. So it was neat, and can't wait to get them back in there this fall for a real game. But they certainly enjoyed it, and they enjoyed Mr. Patrick and Mr. Michael playing their songs and coming over to give them hugs, and they were high-fiving Brewer and Garcia and those guys before. So they were little celebrities running around out there before we even got in. But it was really, really neat stuff. So.
Awesome.
And congratulate. You said his name was Bill?
John.
John. I feel like the guy from Christmas Vacation. Give me that report, Bill.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, John, hats off to you and your son, man. That's awesome. The first time I believe it or not, I remember my first time Williams-Brice. I was about 5, so it was. I remember thinking, wow, this is it.
Shoot, I was about to turn, 76, 83. So I was 6. Did not go to the Southern Cal game. Went to the Notre Dame game that year. Gamecocks lost 30-6 at home to the Irish, and then went to South Bend the next year and won, of course. But that was my first game at Williams-Brice. First game overall was the 79 Hall of Fame Bowl against Missouri in luxurious Legion Field in Birmingham. It was raining. Stuck my head out of my mom's raincoat. But that was 83 was the first home game. Did not make another home game until 89.
Oh wow.
89. Yeah. That was my next home game. I went, my parents would go. But 89, I went to all of them and then started going to most of them. But yeah, that's the great thing about Carolina football and Carolina sports, man. It is about family. And that's, to me, that's more valuable long-term, when you look at life than championships and all that. Of course, it's always nice to celebrate championships with family, right? Wins over Clemson, as we all know. That's a big one. But certainly was heartwarming to read that email, which I did over the weekend. And also, JB, on a personal level, to see those pictures, man. I kind of got a little lump in the old throat myself when I saw it.
Yeah, that's my wife would be thrilled about that. I'll have to fix that during the break and see if I can't get a better one.
I'm like, okay, who's taking this picture?
Boy, Carol's that
one. How about this picture of Williams-Brice?
I was talking about it, Williams-Brice.
We had a slideshow malfunction, but anyway.
Sorry about that, Gary.
But that was
sorry, honey.
That was good. All right, so Bill said Whittle said at Spears Creek Church, Spears Creek Road or whatever. It's off Percival. all those roads. I used to live around there. All those roads kind of run together. Something right there that the Clemson Road area of I-20 in Columbia, but it's yeah. So if Bill corrected Whittle there, it's Percival, but it's called Clothing World. Clothing World. It's a heck of a name.
Clothing
World.
Welcome to Clothing World. There we go. That's a better picture. There we go. There's there. My goodness. Great reaction.
Yep, they were fired up. We actually sat in our actual seats.
Cool.
I wanted to see if how they would do 30 rows up, and did fine.
Nice.
Of course, about after halftime, or right around halftime, Dad, are we still staying in a hotel room tonight? I said, yeah, we're going to. They love hotels, man.
That's what it's all about. Oh yeah. Little ones love hotels.
Yeah. When are we going to the hotel? I'm like,
They bounce up on the bed. It's like, yeah, my niece loved it at Disney. She was claimed her spot as soon as she got there.
I want to live in a hotel. Okay, that'd be nice.
Okay, just make sure
I'd take the maid service every day.
That's the only thing I would really. I'd be like, yeah, if somebody come in and clean all my stuff up.
some of these hotels, I mean, like the one we were in, the Hilton this weekend, and they have the little tag in there now that says if you're staying multiple days and you'd like, guest services, it's by recommend or request only. I'm like, man, what happened to the days where they used to you'd leave for the day and then you come back and everything's cleaned up for you? COVID changed all that. COVID got everybody lazy, man.
They're just trying to save money.
Exactly.
Put my towels on the floor every day. I want a fresh, clean towel. That's part of this experience.
You son of a bitch.
Yeah, that's right.
Where's my towel?
Where's my towel?
Oh, gosh. Over 40 courses to play in 2 states. TravelingCountryClub.com. Gamecock owned and operated. If you haven't joined, my neighbor just joined. Matter of fact, he was telling me the other day, he goes, dude, let's go to Santee. I was like, let's do it. TravelingCountryClub.com. You can play from the mountains to the beach. I'm telling you, if you play golf or know somebody that does, this is where you want to go. Check out the website. You'll be very, very glad you did. TravelingCountryClub.com. All right, hour 1 in the books. Keith Alsep leads off hour 2 when we return.
What's up, Gamecock fans? This is Pitcher Noah Hall. If you want some delicious food for your event, I suggest visiting nanasporch.com today to find out what they all have to offer. It's really good Southern cuisine based out of Charlotte, my hometown. I hope you guys go check it out. Go Cox and go Nanas.
Are you looking to buy a new home? Kevin O'Connell with Union Home Mortgage is a local mortgage expert and Gamecocks fan servicing North and South Carolina. Whether you're buying a home, building your dream home with new construction, or turning your equity into cash, UHM's world-class service will ensure you find the perfect mortgage to achieve your home ownership goals. Call Kevin at 803-906-0244 or visit UHM.com today. Union Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS 2229, LONMLS 1772182.
Electric Bikes of Charleston offers the most fun you'll ever have on 2 wheels. The home of Oventon, Velotric, Magnum Bikes, and more, they sell to consumers all across the state and offer outstanding warranties and service after the sale. Their electric bikes are equipped with 5 levels of pedal assist plus a throttle, so you can ride longer, handle the heat better, but still get great exercise. Bikes are available for all ages and sizes. Visit electricbikescharleston.com or stop into their store in Mount Pleasant if you're in the Low Country. Electric Bikes of Charleston, powering inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Welcome to TravelingCountryClub.com, your modern golf club experience. Hey folks, this is Michael Manus, former Gamecock golfer, inviting you to play more golf with a membership to TravelingCountryClub.com. With over 40 courses across the Carolinas, our membership provides you with an affordable way to enjoy a club-like golf experience. From the mountains to the coast, we offer golf courses that will challenge all types of golfers, no matter your handicap level or level of play. Plus, we offer unique membership benefits not seen anywhere else as part of Traveling Country Club. In July, we're excited to bring to you the 3rd annual Plunder on Pawleys 2-day golf tournament, with rounds played at Caledonia and True Blue golf courses in the heart of Pawleys Island. Head to TravelingCountryClub.com to register for that event, and it is not exclusive to TCC members, but to become one, you can sign up and bring to life your golf game. Tee it up with Traveling Country Club, TravelingCountryClub.com, TravelingCountryClub.com, proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Zachary Davis from Carolina Hoops, and you're watching the show with JB, JC, and Phil. Go Cox.
Welcome back, everybody, to Inside the Gamecocks, the show presented to you by Express Sunrooms of Columbia. John Barber and his team would love to take your call at 803-446-4662 or shoot them an email, johnb@expresssunrooms.com. Talk about how they can bring some more sunshine into your life this summer. And joining us now on the McKellar Enterprises guest line, don't forget, as it gets warmer, need to tighten up that swing, want somebody to take a look at it who actually knows what they're doing. Get in touch with Meredith Taylor, McKellarEnterprises.org. She'll set up a virtual. Actually, she can do virtual swing lessons, all that stuff. Or you can meet her in person. Go play a few rounds with her on the course. But Keith Alsop of Gamecock Pod Daily, Gamecock Pod Live, of course, Wednesdays right after our show on YouTube. Keith, what'd you think? What were your initial thoughts coming out of the spring game?
I don't think we're going to win a game. It was awful. No,
doom and gloom.
It was terrible.
Look, I don't think there's a whole lot you can really take out of these things. I didn't particularly pay much attention to the schemes on offense. JC and I had talked about this even prior to spring practice, that because of the lack of depth at the edge position and because of the versatility of guys like Elijah Davis and Tonka Hemingway and Boogie Huntley, and because of the bigger guys you have now, like Jamal Weiss, like Xavier McLeod, that you could play three of those guys at one time and then have one edge guy playing like a buck, and it would be a 4-3-3-4 type of deal. And I thought that's what we saw on defense. I really like Elijah Davis. The main thing I paid attention to was personnel, right? Like, on offense, it's easy to see South Carolina is really improved at the tight end position with Trey Knox and Joshua Simon. I thought DeKirian Joyner had a couple of really nice runs. There were a couple of runs I would like to see him stick it up inside instead of bouncing it outside. I like Eddie Lewis. I think he is going to be a great addition to the roster at wide receiver. I mean, we already know Juice Wells, Xavier Legette, and Amarian Brown. You know, unfortunately, you had that injury to Jalen Nichols, and I think we're all kind of holding our breath on that. I thought Spencer Rattler looked well. I like the fact they dialed one up right off the bat for him and for Lenore Sellers. I think both to Eddie Lewis, and unfortunately, you know, both of them were over. The quarterbacks over threw him, but I think there's a lot of really interesting personnel that I liked on both sides of the football.
I'm with you there on, you know, you made a point that the carry-on sticking it up inside, and hopefully that'll come in time, because I thought when he did commit to following the hole on the inside, he was fine running between the tackles. I mean, he looked like a normal running back out there. Keith, we talked about the linebackers a lot here, I thought Stone Blanton inside the box looked significantly better, like more comfortable, more instinctive. I mean, I don't know about him totally sideline to sideline yet. I didn't really see a whole lot of that. Thought he looked good. I thought Pup Howard flew around pretty well. Thought Bam Martin Scott made some plays. It was encouraging for me at that spot for the most part on Saturday night. What were your thoughts about the linebackers?
So just watching the game, as I went through, I made notes on players. I thought Stone Blanton looked leaner. He did look quicker, more decisive. And I really thought Bam Martin Scott looked leaner and more decisive and quicker. And so I really like those guys. JC, I just feel like Pup Howard is going to outgrow the linebacker position. He's 6'4", 245 pounds. That cat's probably going to be 255. I mean, if they're going to play 3 down with a buck standing up, I mean, I don't know. Maybe he fools me, but a long history of guys that are, when South Carolina started recruiting him, and when he committed to South Carolina, he was 6'3", 215 pounds. Everybody thought he was going to be a linebacker. And he shows up, and by the end of January, he's 6'4", 242 pounds. And so to me, that's one thing I'm really looking for. Clearly, South Carolina still has their eyes on adding a linebacker in the transfer portal. And so we'll just have to see. But I like him. He's a football player. I don't know where he's going to play, but Pup Howard is definitely an SEC football player. So is Jalen Kilgore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's like one of my 2 or 3 favorite guys in the class. But when you look at the defense, I think you have to take a very measured approach because Jordan Strong is going to be a starter. Mo Kaba will likely be a starter. David Spalding is going to be a starter. Tonka Hemingway is going to be a starter. And so that meant you essentially had 7 starters out there split among 2 teams, just like the offensive line. You didn't have Nick Gargiulo and Rashawn Lee on the same team. That was split up. And I think that's why I just don't think South Carolina has 2 offensive lines right now. I do think reinforcements are on the way when the Big Tree and Jatavius Shivers and Trevon Ball come in this summer. And then certainly they may top that with this class. Josiah Thompson committed on Friday. That gives you your 3 in-state guys. I think South Carolina is probably the favorite for Mike Williams. And so South Carolina is really recruiting well in the trenches. And so Jalen Nichols goes out, and then you don't have Ja'Kai Moore, and then you have your other guys split up. And so, again, I'm looking more at personnel rather than scheme, but there's no denying Lenora Sellers has the it factor. And I don't think South Carolina has had a quarterback like him. 6'3", 232 pounds. It's 4'4" in the 40. And I don't know, almost a half a year of college credits from high school, a 4.9 GPA, and a tremendous work ethic. I just think the sky's the limit for that guy. And he put it on display because they let him run live and throw it. And I just think he's going to do nothing but continue to get better and better and better.
I want to kind of add to this the conversation on the defense, Keith, because one of the things that I'm with you. I just don't get too hyped up on results of a spring game or anything like that. I like seeing the things that just the common eyeball test stuff. What do they look like getting off the bus? What do some of these young guys look like? Did anybody get hurt? For the most part, no. We'll see what happens with Nichols, those type things. But then, you're kind of always paying attention to see, at least I am, okay, is there somebody like generally we're the guys who know every number on the field, right? And I'm one like when I sit in my seats, people are like, dude, who's number so-and-so? Who's number so-and-so? So in the spring game, I always look for the guy that I don't know. And I'm like, who the hell is this guy? Turns out it was Brian Thomas. We saw him play last year. Don't want to say that he was forgotten because he wasn't. But he just wasn't on my radar, somebody I was going to be really focused in on. You just mentioned Sellers and Joyner and all these other guys. That's who I was really looking for. But so I started kind of watching him. And I mentioned this morning with Bill and Preston, and I want to make sure this isn't taken out of context. But I was watching him play and run around, and I was like, the way he plays reminds me of Eric Norwood. But I don't want to compare anybody to Eric Norwood because he's Eric Norwood. But what did you watch him at all? And if you did, am I off by saying something like that?
So I thought that was one of the guys, I was paying attention to him, Terrell Dawkins, guys like that were coming off the edge. I still think Donovan Westmoreland's got to be a linebacker. I think he's a situational DPR, designated pass rusher. But I thought Brian Thomas looked like he's taken a step. He looks quicker, more explosive, more sudden coming off the edge. He still does not have the ideal size, but if he's playing standing up with Tonka Hemingway, Boogie Huntley, and I don't know, TJ Sanders or Nick Barrett or Xavier McLeod or Jamal Weish or a transfer portal guy playing inside, I think that really helps him. And I think that gives him a chance to be, kind of a hybrid outside linebacker pass rusher.
Yeah.
And I thought he did look better. I really like Elijah Davis, and I still think he's got to get in shape. He's really sudden and violent and quick off the ball. But if he lost 15 pounds, I think, which he does have that to lose around the midsection, I think he definitely could be a defensive end. And there was one play, my man Xavier McLeod, who I'm telling you, this guy is going to be like one of these big Georgia defensive linemen. You look at him, he's not fat. He's lean at 6'5", 325, okay? That dude gets off the ball. I don't think South Carolina's ever had a guy that big that gets off the ball like he does. And there's a lot of names in that defensive tackle room, but I'm telling you right now, Xavier McLeod's coming for somebody's playing time.
I don't disagree with that. JC, you've mentioned this a lot, and I've heard it too. We won't know until the fall, obviously. But Keith just mentioned a minute ago specifically to Brian Thomas, but he also threw another couple of names around who seem to be, I don't want to call them tweeners, but very versatile guys. And they're going to sign an end in the portal. Who that's going to be, I don't know. Maybe they'll sign two. Who knows? But you've mentioned, yeah, exactly. I mean, hopefully they sign, the stud of all studs, but we don't know. But JC, you've mentioned, as it stands today, there is a chance that their best defense could be more in a 3-4 type defense to get more playmakers on the field. And they have a lot of those tweener type guys that you can kind of do that with. Like, did you, in watching Saturday, I'll let you and Keith kind of go back and forth on this. I'll step back. But just to introduce the conversation, did y'all see with that type of talent that was out there of what we saw, that could be a possibility now that we actually got to see a couple quarters of it?
Yeah, especially with Elijah Davis and Brian Thomas and what they did. And I agree with Keith. I mean, if you can get some weight off this guy, keep in mind, there's a measurement out there of him at 6'3", 262. He gets to campus 6'3", 285. I'm not a mathematician or anything, but you kind of throw that together and you're like, well, he did gain some bad weight getting in here when you combine that with what Beamer said and frankly the eyeball test. So if you can get him on the edge, I mean, that's something. And at 260, he can do an edge in a 4-man front. As far as the 3-man front stuff goes, people have to keep in mind too, that's in the playbook. And I'd say probably Clayton White runs that kind of stuff the last couple of years, 10, 15% of the time. It's a lot like it's not taught and installed and assignment wise. It's not like Muschamp's defense, but it looks like Muschamp's defense if you're just looking with some of the odd front stuff they do in the standing up. And they do. I mean, everybody from Pup Howard to Bam Martin Scott to Jerron Willis to, not Mo Kaba necessarily, but, and then Jordan Strawn and Brian Thomas. And there's a lot of guys that in that linebacker room and in that edge position. And then at tackle too, that can kind of hanker down. I mean, Boogie Huntley and Tonka Hemingway in a 3-4 at the quote unquote end spots, they're tailor-made for it, and we talk about Pup Howard. I'm not ready to move him yet, but I'm not saying Keith's wrong. It just kind of depends on how he grows. He could end up being, it could be like a Travian Robertson or Melvin Ingram thing. Travian spent the first year actually starting at end, I think, before he got hurt, and then moved inside and was fine. Melvin Ingram was a linebacker, moved inside, was fine. Or it could be like Jasper Brinkley or Brandon Spikes or the litany of kids that have been at Alabama. They're these big 240-pound linebackers that just stay there. But in a 3-4 like that, a guy like Pup, you can use him different ways. One play standing up, next play is Will Anderson. I mean, it's so I think it's smart of the staff to do that. I mean, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I think people around here are always going to want to go with a 4-man front with big, tall, tree-looking Desmond Umeozulu type defensive because that's what was here during the Spurrier era and the Ellis Johnson. They were really good. But I'll also remind everybody, Charlie Strong had a pretty good defense when he was here, and he ran 3-3-5. Joe Lee Dunn, nobody was complaining about his defense at the time. The Black Death, that was a straight, what was it? It was a 3-2-6-3. Was that a 3-3-5 as well, Keith? A 50, I guess. It was a 3-man odd front.
Yeah, it was a 50.
Yeah, and I think people, because of the Muschamp era, because of Lorenzo Ward mysteriously moving to a 3-4 before 2014 and having one of the worst defenses in the history of the program, they're sort of leery of that. But look, I'll tell you this right now. Lorenzo Ward did not have the defensive lineman to run that. He didn't have – I mean, he had JT Barrett, nose tackle, and the Dixon splitting him, and that didn't need to happen. South Carolina does have – Keith mentioned McLeod. If you're going to go more 3-man front, a golden opportunity for him because he's that bigger body. Nick Barrett, golden opportunity for him. And like I said, Boogie and Tonka are the type of defensive tackles. They're just a tiny bit undersized. They're not undersized. They're a tiny bit, but their quickness is what makes them good. And so you kind of put them in that kind of situation. They could be very effective. So that's my take on that. Am I guaranteeing they're going to play more? Now, we'll see what happens in the portal, with that. And hopefully they get the personnel to the point where they just do like they normally do and mix it all up. But I do think that's something that has to be considered. And, it's not that dramatic of a departure because it is in the playbook and they do run some of that already.
I mean, not to mention TJ Sanders and DeAndre Martin.
Right.
Both of those guys are, 6'6", 300-pound guys that I think both could play the 5 technique. So I do think there's a lot of versatility. I guess another guy that didn't play because of injury that I was really looking forward to seeing, and I still think you have to put a star by this guy's name or an asterisk and say whatever you get's a bonus, but I would really like to see D'Angelo Gibbs as well. Just like Desmond Umeozulu, and we didn't see him. I've also heard really good things about Judge Collier, and this is another guy in the mold of DQ Smith and Nick Emamori that was not heavily recruited, that did not have a lot of Power 5 offers. He played at a charter school. Okay, he didn't play at South Point or Northwestern. But he's quietly come in and been very productive, and the staff has been very high on him. And I think that's another guy in the secondary that has a very bright future. And then you're going to add several guys this summer, including, according to Clayton White, Jalen Kilgore, Bakari Swain, who I still think is a wide receiver. He's going to be a corner. And I know they're very high on him as well. And so I just think this staff continues to upgrade the roster. And, you know, I still wouldn't be surprised if they don't add another wide receiver between now and the time summer school starts in June or July. And, I mean, we'll just see what the transfer portal holds for South Carolina. I didn't realize it opened on April the 15th. I thought it was May the 1st. And, man, my mentions, I got like the transfer portal on my mentions on Twitter, you know, on alert, and it's like just going berserk.
I got busted with that too, because I originally said the 15th because I remember the change, and then I guess the NCAA and all their wisdom did not update their website or one of their websites, and so it went back to the end of April, and then went back to the 15th. So. But yeah, the good news is if you're worried about South Carolina outbound guys in the portal or anybody of significance, the good news is it's a tight squeeze. Now, if you're looking for inbound guys, that's the other bad news. That's the bad news. It's a tight squeeze. So we'll know way more about this roster in 2 weeks than we do right now.
Yeah.
Hey, so one walk on I want to mention that I really like is DJ Black, and that's a guy JC and I have been talking about since, you know, he became a preferred walk-on. He had, you know, several scholarship offers, not to Power 5 schools. But, I mean, this is a guy that is like 10'6" in the 100 meters. And he's a big dude, maybe 6'2", 190, 195. And so, you know, we'll just have to see what happens there, but that's one guy that can really move, and so is Judge Collier.
Well, you know, Keith, to something you said earlier, just about a lot of the talent, the upgrades on this roster and things like that. I was very lucky to be able to spend substantial time before the game with over at the Letterman's Club, and I'll put it this way: somebody who is very influential, who used to play here, and I would say when his opinion matters, he jokingly looked at me. He said, "You know what we got in that building over there?" And I said, he was talking about the Spurrier indoor building, and I said, "What?" I thought something new, like some type of new something, you know, another friggin' movie theater or something. He goes, "We got football players." And I said, "Yeah, I know that." He goes, No, we have like real football players. There's a bunch of football players on this roster. And that's what Shane has been. That's kind of been a part of my understanding of this is, yeah, he's a really good player, but does he love football or not? Because we need guys in here that love the game. And it sounds to me like a lot of these kids that they have signed, while they are signing elite players at an alarming rate right now, and it's about to only get better. They also signed a bunch of guys. You mentioned Kilgore earlier, Keith. You mentioned Bakari Swain. There's a bunch of guys. When we look last year, DQ Smith and Eamon Worry, and just all these dudes who seem to be blue collar, and they just get out there and they bust rear end and they just love football. And when those are your 3-star guys, you probably start feeling pretty good about your football team.
And I mean, I got to say, guys, I've been following recruiting for probably 40 years, over 40 years. I've never seen a list of visitors like was in Columbia on Saturday, where you have multiple 5-star guys across multiple classes. And it ain't the only time or the first time or the last time that these guys plan on being on campus. No. And, you know, I just, take my hat off to Taylor Edwards, Shane Beamer, and that entire staff for what they're doing right now on the recruiting trail. And I mean, that Gamecock walk for a spring game, I mean, it looked like it might as well have been mid-October, Jamie. And
it was cool.
I mean, I couldn't tell that there were 51,000 people there. I don't know. You were there, but
oh, sure there were.
Let's just say there was at least 51,000 there.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that team in the Upstate had how many? 50,000.
Exactly.
50. Exactly 50,000.
And we had
even
51 on the dot. So
yeah,
yeah. It's amazing how that works, isn't it?
Carolina's not been shy about poking the bear since that game, man. They've been poking that bear pretty good with their social media department.
Why not?
I agree.
Why not? They've had enough. It's enough.
The avalanche of disrespect that has come from up there the last 10 years.
When your representatives are shadow of mom's basement and those type idiots that just can't wait to tweet at everybody all the time, they deserve it. So they're going to keep getting it. It's awesome. I don't get on there and say stuff because I don't want to have to deal with it. They keep coming and they send you these nasty grams in your inbox about. Hoping say things about your kids and stuff like that. And it makes me sick to my stomach. So I've seen it. But they deserve it because that's all they've done for the last few years. But I got bad news for them. Times have changed.
I think it's like two guys that are probably similar to how the Vandy Whistlers were growing up that do live in their mom's basement, and they have 15 different accounts.
Shadow of mom's basement. He lives in – I think
that's probably who they – like the personality type is the Whistler type. Just punchable faces and everything,
I'd rather have the Whistler than Shadow of Mom's Basement. That guy is such a twerp.
Hey, so let me ask you this: when's the last time there was a top 50 or 60 guy out of the state of Georgia? I'm just going to call him the King Joseph Edwards.
Oh,
defensive end, tight end. Georgia's all over him. Okay. I mean, he's probably going to Georgia. But how about after he comes back for like the third time this year to the spring game that he says, I'm going to be back many times before my official visit in June.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like that kid. I think here's the thing though. I also know he's one that, regardless of where he ends up, you sort of appreciate sometimes guys that handle it this way. He says good things about every school he goes to. He's real respectful about the different schools. I know even like Texas and Oklahoma, he says some nice things about those guys. But I also here's the difference though. The Gamecocks have had him and a group of guys from Georgia since they were like ninth graders coming over. He's kind of part of that group that they got in on. The staff got on extremely early, so I think there's longevity there. I know that Justin Green went to Georgia for their game, and that's going to be a tough one to pull. But I think if it weren't for the Georgia offer with him, Carolina would be at the top. And look, ask. We just talked about Clemson. Recruiting in Georgia at a high level is kind of keeping their recruiting up right now, if you kind of look at the guys they've actually gotten. And so for South Carolina to continue to do well there, on top of getting the guys from in-state, on top of being in good position to at least get a couple out of North Carolina and Virginia, on top of what they're doing in the DMV, they've now decided to roll into Mississippi and try to get guys. And they're in first place for Daniel Hill from Meridian. Now, I think he likes the fact the Gamecocks are going to play him at running back. I think Alabama wants him as a backer. But, you get a kid out of Meridian, Mississippi that Alabama offers to carry the water. That's saying something about your reach. So I think, Carolina in Georgia specifically, to get back to the point, they're doing exactly what they need to do in that state. And it's almost – I thought Muschamp got Georgia recruiting in Georgia. That he cleaned it up. Most of the guys he took made sense. Most of the guys he took that could play, unlike the Spurs staff, took a lot of guys they shouldn't have. He cleaned it up. And what surprised me is, I thought it made sense because Muschamp has all the connections in that state, et cetera, so did staff. But this staff's almost built on top of it. They're almost getting the right guys, but they're almost getting a higher quality of the right guys out of Georgia. And in that state, many of the best players in the history of the program, Connor Shaw, Sterling Sharp, George Rogers, are all from Georgia. So it's an absolutely pivotal state for the Gamecocks. And that's maybe something with all the DMV talk and the in-state talk we haven't talked about enough is how they're doing in the Peach State, Keith.
I mean, I agree. You look at the 2025 corner out of Atlanta that's been committed to Ohio State. I mean, I think that one, Jonte Gilbert is a name to watch. I mean, normally I don't pay attention to 2025 or 2026 guys. I'm more concerned about the guys that are coming in this year simply because of the transfer portal and everything else. I mean, that's really the most important thing, but, certainly geography helps South Carolina. It's a 3-hour trip across I-20 from Atlanta versus all the way up to Columbus, Ohio, particularly when you get into November and December and then, until April. It's a lot colder up there. And look, the Torian Gray factor, I think, is going to allow South Carolina to go all over the country if they want to and expand their footprint when it comes to defensive backs. Because that guy probably is the best defensive backs coach in the country. And look what he's done with guys like Carlins Patel and the walk-on from transfer from Burns to Gardner Webb, who became an All-American. And, this year, Rush and Smith and Eamon Worry and DQ Smith, what they did as freshmen. And then just the development factor with Marcellus Dial and O'Donnell Fortune and others. And I think, next it's going to be Jalen Kilgore and Judge Collier. I think those are the next two names.
Yeah.
That's a great thing about him and why I think he's perfect for South Carolina, because he's got a long track record of coaching some highly rated guys like Kendall Fuller and some guys he had at Virginia Tech, some guys he had at Florida. I mean, the best prospects, and he can make those guys better and get them to the next level. But he also can find a guy maybe nobody else wants and evaluate him and then coach him up and get him to the next. So he's almost like, some guys are either or. Ron Cooper, I thought, was an or. Great at finding guys, coaching them up, but, probably not going to get you in the door with, Vernon Hargraves or somebody like that. This guy can do both. And I think at South Carolina where, hey, look, you're not always going to sign 4 or 5-star cornerbacks in a class or four blue chips. And you got the in-state factor, and this state seems to put out under the radar DBs like it's nobody's business. It's just a perfect fit, I think. And so I'm in complete agreement with Keith there that I think, as time continues to roll on, you're going to have guys from all over that are highly interested in playing for Torrey Gray simply because of the track record that, hey, it doesn't matter what kind of skill set you have, he can get you there. All right. This segment is gone for 38 minutes, folks. We got to get a break. So,
Yes.
Keith, thank you for your insight.
Great stuff. JC, Jamie, Phil, you guys have a magnificent rest of the week.
Happy spring is over and just baseball season for a while to you, my friend.
It is baseball season, regular season winding down, and the playoffs are on the way.
Yeah, man. Cannot wait. Thanks, Keith.
All right.
Have a good one, bud.
Yep.
All right.
All
As we
right.
mentioned, we got to get a break. Got a lot in the Nana Sports chat box, including some things about Bill King that I can answer. And Cynical Aries needs to buy another T-shirt from the store. So that and some other stuff coming up after these messages. If you're in the upstate of South Carolina and are in need of residential real estate services, Cindy Bass Searfoss of Caldwell Banker Kane is for you. Ask her about the Village at Creekside, all of her listings in my hometown of Spartanburg, South Carolina, right there on Daniel Morgan Avenue, married to a lifelong Gamecock fan. And many of our listeners have already bought homes from her and been 100% satisfied with the detail and care she uses. Cindy Searfoss, 864-414-5271, Caldwell Banker Kane in the upstate for your real estate needs.
Coach O here, and when I'm not eating average jambalaya or celebrating endless summer in Destin, I like to eat pimento cheese straight out the bucket. And the only pimento cheese I like to eat is from Nana's Porch. It's award-winning, it'll melt in your mouth, it's good on a cracker, it's good in a bowl, it's good on a piece of bread. Also, don't forget Nana's Porch has a hell of a food truck. It's award-winning as well, and they're here for all of your catering needs. So get online, nanasporch.com. It's good. Coach O signing off. Endless summer, go Tiger.
The preferred sign partner of Gamecock Athletics is Signorama Columbia, and they should be yours too. A full-service sign company that handles design, production, install, and service, Signorama Columbia has helped to bring to life the perfect vision for so many all across South Carolina. Owned and operated by proud Gamecock alumni, they can handle all types of signage, including interior and exterior, vehicle graphics, and more. Go to Signorama.com and find the West Columbia location, or call them at 803-407-9284. Bring your brand to life with Signorama Columbia, and go Gamecocks.
Hey, man, are you sick and tired of your business computer guy?
Yes, he takes forever to call me back and doesn't always respond to the requests.
Yeah, same here. I'm paying him good money. I constantly have issues, and I'm worried he's not backing up my network and securing it properly.
You know what, Phil? Let's ask Stone Blanton.
Hey, JC and Phil, if you want a solution to your IT problems, give Heritage Digital a call. Our boy Matt Odom has a low-cost, one-price solution that will get you running right. Call 843-699-1001 or heritagedigital.com and ask for Matt. He will hook you up today and tell them Stone sent you.
This is freshman All-American Nicky Manwari of the Carolina Gamecocks, and you're listening to The Show with JC and Phil.
Welcome back to Inside the Gamecocks, the show, everybody. Presented to you by Express Sunrooms of Columbia. 803-446-4662 is how to get in touch with John and his team down there. Talk about how potentially they could enclose a porch or a patio for you so you can enjoy the summer and sunshine bug-free.
We are also powered, of course, by Electric Bikes of Charleston, electricbikescharleston.com. This is I don't know what the weather's like in other areas, but the weather this week is probably the best weather week of the entire year that we've had. Every day is between 75 and 80 degrees and sunny and no rain. So it might be time to get outdoors and enjoy yourself and get on that long bike ride if you haven't been on one, or if you want to go on one and you're looking for something new, that's where you want to go. And people come from all over the place. That's a true story. They travel here to the Low Country from all over in South Carolina to shop at Michelle's store, electricbikescharleston.com. All the details that you could possibly dream of are on their website, and these things are flying out the door, so make sure you get down quickly. Speaking of flying, I do have to mention this. This is something personal. One of our best friends in our neighborhood, Dan Ziner, is he's a hell of a golfer. First of all, he actually writes for Golf Digest, so he gets to go all over the country. He doesn't have to pay. Plays every course. He's also a runner, and he won a marathon last year in Kansas to qualify for today's Boston Marathon, which he is running in. Nice. He's expected to finish in about 30 minutes with a time of a shade over 3 hours. So running almost 27 miles in a little over 3 hours. So hats off to my man, Dan. We were actually going to try to go up there and see him, but, just couldn't do it. We got so much going on. But Boston Marathon, and he's 3 hours.
Is that good?
Pretty good.
It's a pretty solid time.
Anybody that runs almost 27 miles, I don't care how long it takes you to get there, hats off to you. Crazy stuff. So hats off to my friend Dan, because my wife just sent me an update on the app or whatever. So that's what I've been looking at. Yeah.
All right, so Kreger says Bill King, and for those of you that don't know, I've got these little weekly things I do sometimes. 107.5 with Bill Gunner on Tuesday mornings. Jamie has some other shifts with Bill.
No,
and
just
Preston.
one other shift. I'm
one other shift.
I'm the Monday morning guy.
I enjoy that one. I'm glad it's not on Monday morning. I'm glad it's on Tuesdays, but
exactly.
That's a better morning for me, especially during football season when I get drugged to these Bears watch parties and they get out of control sometimes. But so I'm on there, and in Tuscaloosa, I've told you I'm on with Wimp and Barry Sanderson every Wednesday, sometimes Thursdays. Well, Bill King calls me up the other day, and I used to do Sirius XM with him on recruiting when I was national recruiting guy. I did an hour every week, loved it. Love Thursdays. Get up in the morning, drive to downtown Nashville before the traffic, driving out when the traffic's coming in because my office for 24/7 was out in Brentwood. And I got to go to the studios right there. It's called the Baby Space Needle right there at, I guess it's still Bridgestone Arena, where they had the SEC tournament and all that. That was always cool, because you kind of felt like a Nashville thing because they have all the Sirius XM country music artists coming in and out and stuff. So it was kind of cool. But anyway, I had a blast. Always loved being on with Bill. Always loved Bill. So he calls me up. We talk Gamecocks, and he says he wants to do a weekly now. And so every Thursday, I'm going to be on with him. And he asked me, who does recruiting like you used to? And I mentioned Charles Power. Just because for Bill's audience, Charles makes a lot of sense. Sort of a newcomer and a guy that can talk about a lot of different players and stuff like that. Not really a newcomer. He's been in a while. But certainly Charles and his entire family are dear friends of mine. So I recommended him. So that's what Kreger's getting at. But, yeah, I'm on with Bill King in the morning. And like I said, if you need a good morning show, I mean, he's based out of Nashville now. It's not that national scope on Sirius, but he's still got a national audience. So it's kind of cool. So anyway, just wanted to say that the other day. Yeah,
All
Cynical needs – remember, you can go to InsideTheGameCocks.com and buy T-shirts. So Cynical had his Find a Damn Way chicken shirt, roaster shirt on at Outback the other night. The waitress was confused about the chicken and Find a Damn Way. That's supposed to be like Gamecocks. Find it. So anyway, those are for sale if you guys want to rock and roll with those.
Here's a strange story. I'm not sure if any of you have seen this out of Columbus, Ohio, or actually, quote, Delaware, Ohio. But apparently Brian Hartline, who recently named the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, had been drinking and was operating a utility terrain vehicle, which I'm assuming is, some type of four-wheeler or something like that. I don't know why they wouldn't just call it that, but and it crashed early Sunday morning, so probably late at night cruising around, and him and another person were sent to the hospital. Looks like they're going to be okay, but a woman called 911 at about 1:20 Sunday morning reporting that Hartline had flipped a four-wheeler with a passenger on board near his residence in Liberty Township in southern Delaware County. The dispatcher asked, have they been drinking? Do you know? Yes, they have. That's what his sister responded with. So we'll see if anything comes to fruition with this involving Brian Hartline. I know a bunch of people who've had drinks and driven four-wheelers on their own property and crashed them. They were all okay. I'm not saying it's something that's okay to do, but when you're the offensive coordinator at Ohio State, it might carry a little bit of a stiffer penalty. So we'll see what happens.
Wait, you said it was his sister who snitched? No.
His sister snitched?
Yeah. Have they been drinking? Well, yeah.
Oh, well, yeah. Of course. I don't even know if there's a law against that on your own property. Maybe on public road. I'm not sure. I mean, and those vary from state to state. So Ohio may be different than like Indiana or Kentucky or one of those states. So Brian Hartline is one of the best receivers coaches in the country from a recruiting standpoint. They clean up at that position nationally.
Yeah.
They get everybody out of Ohio, and then everybody else they want to. So He's a really good coach, and I remember when he played, he's a really good player. So he's one of those guys that was elite as a player and is becoming elite as a coach. So I certainly hope he's okay. Certainly hope he's okay. We want to get this final break out of the way, Phil.
Yeah.
Let's knock it out. We gotta.
Let's do that. And when we return, we'll obviously begin to wind things down. But I do want to pass along a couple of these numbers from from what Carolina softball has been doing, because they are having a hell of a season and they deserve somebody to pat them on the back. And we're going to do it right here on Inside the Gamecocks, the show in the Signorama Studios. To being back in the pool and boat are quickly approaching. Many of us don't have the time to hit the gym, but Charleston Fitness Equipment can change that for you. Outfit your home with a treadmill, elliptical, or my favorite, a home rower that allows you to row with the pros all over the world. They have free weights, home gyms, flooring, and much more that makes keeping or getting in shape much more convenient. Located in Mount Pleasant, visit charlestonfitnessequipment.com for more. Get in shape like our Gamecocks. Charleston Fitness Equipment, proud partners of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
Are you looking to buy a new home? Kevin O'Connell with Union Home Mortgage is a local mortgage expert and Gamecocks fan servicing North and South Carolina. Whether you're buying a home, building your dream home with new construction, or turning your equity into cash, UHM's world-class service will ensure you find the perfect mortgage to achieve your home ownership goals. Call Kevin at 803-906-0244 or visit UHM.com today. Union Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. NMLS 2229, LONMLS 1772182.
Daddy, I want you to take me to Disney World.
Calm down. JC is here. As y'all know, folks, the family and I have visited Disney World many times, but it can be overwhelming, especially if it's your first time going to the most magical place on earth. I highly recommend wherethisroadleads.com and my friend Cherie, a certified Disney vacation planner. That's right, the mouse has given her permission to book your family vacation hassle-free. You don't know where to go, don't know where to stay, don't know where to eat, don't know what to do. It can be overwhelming. So get on wherethisroadleads.com and schedule your free consultation right now. She can help you out. The prices are very reasonable. You don't pay any extra fees. In fact, she's much more reasonable maybe than booking it straight through Disney. So for your next Disney vacation, or, more likely your first, so you don't panic, go to wherethisroadleads.com and talk to Cherie, certified Disney vacation planner, a partner of Inside the Gamecocks, the show.
This is Braylon Wimmer, South Carolina Gamecock Baseball, and you are listening to Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Go Cox!
Welcome back, everybody. Inside the Gamecocks, the show. Final segment of the show. Of course, we're sponsored by Express Sunrooms of Columbia, 803-446-4662. Is how to get in touch with John Barber and his team. And how about the softball team?
Yeah, how about them, man? It's been impressive. They're in the top 25 now. They've won 4 in a row in league play, all of them ranked victories over Alabama. That one was in Tuscaloosa. I think everybody should understand how good the Tide are, right? Had their hearts broken in game 1 of that series. And then they just swept a top 25 A&M team this weekend. They had their hearts broken against Clemson. Can't get off the schneid there. That was back in the midweek, but they have turned it up, and this program deserves to have some attention paid to them. 30-12 on the season, 7-10 in SEC play, and they've got 3 series left at Georgia versus Auburn, and then at Tennessee. And let me remind everybody how good this league is. Much like baseball, Tennessee's ranked 3rd, Georgia's ranked 7th, and Auburn's ranked 20th. So they've got all, as of now, top 25 matchups remaining on the schedule, in addition to a pair this week against Charleston Southern, a doubleheader that they'll play on Wednesday. So, more than likely, guys, these days, like 8 wins in the league get you into the tournament. But so if they, in these last 3, if they find a way to go like 3-6, they're probably securely in there. And anything better than that, they're going to really start looking at seeding and doing some damage and stuff like that. So we need to pay attention to them because Beverly Smith's got them playing very, very, very well right now. So hats off to the softball team.
Absolutely. And speaking of topics people have been sour and negative about for the better part of 3 years, basketball recruiting.
Yeah.
Men's basketball recruiting.
Little nugget on that, huh?
Miles Stute, Brad Crawford reports this on Twitter. Miles Stute from Vanderbilt. This kid's a really good 3-point shooter. I mean, he came in and lit the Gamecocks up.
Yeah.
He looks like he's coming Carolina's way. He will announce today, later this afternoon, and
sometime here in the next hour.
Yeah. So to me, I think just kind of spitballing what I think Lamont Paris would like to be. I think he would like to be a very good 3-point shooting team. That's a good pickup. Kind of a stretch 4 guy, kind of like they like. So hats off to them for getting a guy that's got some SEC experience, that's had moments where he's filled it up, scored some points, and we'll see how he blends with the other guys. So I think it's another good one. I think there's still work to be done, but Miles Stute to me is one of those you don't like sit there and kind of go, well, wow, who knows if he'll be pretty good or not. He's proven it, so he's a proven guy that can come in and help the team next year.
Yeah, 3 years in the league, so he's still got a couple to play because his first season was 2021, and they gave that back, right, with COVID. So he's got a couple of years to go, but the last 2 seasons, 21-22, averaged 8.5 a game, and then this past year, 8.4 points per game, and that went along with 4.5 boards, shade under an assist per game. And that's kind of his stat line. He is a career 38% shooter from long range as well. 6'7", 215 is what he's listed at. I think he's actually a little bit bigger than that. And he's originally out of Washington, D.C. Miles Stute, as you mentioned, transferring from Vanderbilt. And you pointed out Brad Crawford, at least on Twitter, says he has been told it looks like it's South Carolina as well. So Lamont Paris and the Gamecocks maybe getting a good one, whom they've seen. They know a little bit about his game, as you mentioned.
Yeah, no doubt. And, you just kind of got to, in basketball these days, you got to piece it together. Man, I saw Arkansas got one of the leading scorers in the ACC. I didn't even click on the tweet and see who it was, but, I mean, they're sick with what they do in the portal in men's basketball. Musselman's really, really killing it, as are a lot of the teams in the league. So, but you do want to go to battle next year, I think, with more than what you came in with this season. If you're Lamont Paris, and landing a guy with experience and stuff like that can shoot, I think that's good. And guys, I'll kind of wrap up hoops here. I was kind of thinking the other day when Lamont Paris first got hired, it was like, oh God, they're going to run the Wisconsin offense. And he's like, nah, we don't really run the Wisconsin offense, and we kind of let it go free forming. And I think during the season, we all were kind of like, oh God, what are they doing? I don't understand. Well, you've said that many times, JB. Like, I don't know what this basketball is trying to do. I think when you kind of look at the types of guys he's been targeting, he'd probably do himself a favor to maybe try to have that type of offense at South Carolina. I mean, that type of offense, keep in mind, is kind of an equalizer. I know people from Wisconsin, they're like, they have no business winning in football and men's basketball like they do. But what they do is they just pound the heck out of their system. In football, and they've changed it now in football. Luke Fickell hired Longo, so it's going spread. It's going to be different. Curious to see how they do there. But basketball, it's like that, Bo Ryan, Tony kind of got its start with the Bennett guy, Tony Bennett's dad, senior at Wisconsin. And, so shoot a lot of threes, a lot of good shooters, a lot of skilled guys. Can that be a counterbalance in the SEC, which is a league that's like over the top athletic? Not so much a super skilled basketball league, but over the top athleticism and things like that. So maybe if you're South Carolina, sometimes when you're an underdog like that, you gotta dip when the other guys Duncan or whatever, however the hell you want. I don't know how the thing is, but you got to zig while somebody else is zagging. So I don't know that may not be what he's looking at. I don't know that I don't have any scoop on it, but I'm just kind of looking at what they've been doing in the portal and looking at the problems from last year and then the guys they have coming back. I think it's a potential, I guess, move that he could make to where kind of be that style of team this year. And that style, although it's not the most exciting, it wins. And I think you take winning over exciting any day of the week.
Well, for what it's worth, he's the 84th ranked transfer in the country. South Carolina right now currently has the 16th best class in the country, but with the addition of Miles Stute, probably going to be hovering around the top 10. So we'll see kind of how it all unfolds for those that are interested in rankings and stats and stuff like that. Today, you should see that number for Gamecock basketball shootout.
Is that just for transfers or
just transfers?
No.
Transfer class, yeah. It's pretty good, by the way, for South Carolina in baseball, too, because they're number 2 in the RPI. I mean, this is a pretty good spring for anybody who's not been paying attention.
It ain't been bad. I hated that they lost to the Whistler because like I said,
Yeah.
I don't know where I've been living, but oh God,
it
ruined everybody's day at our house.
Well, that's why I just listen to Derek and Tommy, and you can still hear it a little bit, but they talk over it.
Yeah, he's not quite that bad on the radio. Yeah.
No, he's not. He's not. And we're just so lucky to have those guys call. I'm telling you, for people that don't listen to Carolina baseball games, either if you don't live in an area where you can listen to it and you haven't downloaded the app, the Gamecock app to listen to it, I don't know, crazy. They're so good. It makes it so enjoyable. So hopefully there's my shameless plug for Derek Scott and Tommy Moody. All right, we're painted garnet and black by a couple of painters. LetMePaintSomething.com. They painted a nursery last week for Chavis McDonald. Amongst all the other stuff, I know they have got so much going on. Fences, entire homes, new builds. I mean, they do everything. Hats off to Tristan and these guys, man. They're the best. A couple of painters licensed and insured all over the state of South Carolina and all across the state of Georgia. LetMePaintSomething.com. Get your free quote today. Just send it to them. Send them pictures. They'll quote it. It's that easy. We are out of time, but we will be back tomorrow. A reminder, Monty Lee will join us at 11:20 on Wednesday, a day before Florida comes to town to take on the Gamecocks. So looking forward to that. Thanks to all of you. Thanks to Keith and John Whittle, and thanks to the very well-groomed J.C. Sherbert and the very bald Dr. Phil. We'll see you tomorrow at 11 on Inside the Gamecocks, the show from the Sinorama studio.